Hey, good morning. It's Patricia Murphy. It's Wednesday. This is Seattle Now. Concrete drivers are on strike, and slowing the city's construction boom, that could mean delays for lots of projects, including the reopening of the West Seattle Bridge. We'll learn more from Seattle Times reporter Heidi Groover. But first, let's get you caught up. The city's eviction ban will expire at the end of the month as planned. The city council rejected a resolution to extend it yesterday 5-3. Councilmember Shama Sawant had argued to keep the moratorium until the end of the city's COVID-19 public health emergency. An amendment that would have extended the moratorium until the end of April also failed. Seattle has $25 million in rental assistance to landlords and tenants that has yet to be distributed. Meanwhile, we were expecting it to be cold, but that snow, that was a surprise. And with the overnight temperatures forecast below freezing, the city has opened up its cold weather shelters through the rest of the week. The National Weather Service says it'll be sunny and cold until the rain comes back this weekend. And Sue Bird is back for one more year with the Seattle Storm, her 19th in the WNBA, and quite possibly her last. But it's definitely not about the money. Bird said yesterday she's actually taking a pay cut. She'll earn the league veterans minimum of $72,000 and change. That will let the Storm afford some other roster moves and maybe secure a fifth championship.
We're building the city. The city doesn't get built without concrete. It's just the way it is.
A construction boom that has had the city exploding for almost a decade is starting to slow because of a labor dispute that's brought the local supply of concrete to a halt. The concrete truckers' strike is entering its third month and is slowing projects all over the city, including the reopening of the West Seattle Bridge. Seattle Times reporter Heidi Groover is here to give us the latest. Heidi, really appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
So all you have to do is look up at the skyline at all the cranes to know that Seattle has been booming, and we've seen a ton of growth, and the timelines for all of that construction are reliant on a lot of different suppliers. And right now, concrete mixer drivers are striking, and this is really messing up a ton of projects across town. And this is what some of the drivers are saying.
I'm hoping to settle it and go back to work, but what we need is not to move backwards. We always need to move forward. I mean, especially with inflation and the risk now with COVID. Healthcare is the biggest thing right now. So hopefully they can do more than just bring the same offer and actually just meet at the table. I mean, it's not bargaining if you just offer one thing and walk away.
So mind-blowing, all the money they're making and how much little they're willing to pass on to the guys making them the money. Less and less for us, more and more for them. So that's why we're out here, I guess.
Heidi, we just heard from some drivers. I'm curious what you have been hearing in your reporting about why they're on strike right now.
Well, there are a few things at play, but the biggest sticking point is pay. The drivers want to keep up with the other trades here in the Seattle area. They want to make sure that as this boom is happening that you described, that they are also benefiting from that, as are their employers. And so they have really pushed for better pay in the contract and, again, keeping up with those other trades. Neither side is releasing, specific numbers for their full offers and counter offers, but the companies have claimed that, they've made a generous offer. They say that they've offered wage increases of 17.6% over 3 years, roughly, $2.20 an hour each year. But again, the drivers say that that's not on par with other trades and that they want better pay to keep up with the cost of living here in Seattle.
Okay, so this offer isn't good enough. When is the last time they actually sat down to talk?
Well, they were in mediation with federal mediators in January. That did not result in a deal, and no next date for mediation has been set as far as I've heard.
Okay, and the concrete companies put out a statement last week. They said they're bargaining in good faith and have offered increased pay, pension, and benefits. And Heidi, another thing that's come up is a King County judge recently ruled to impose some restrictions on the picketers. The concrete company said they had some safety concerns around how the strike was being carried out. What's going on there?
Yeah, there are quite a few disagreements about what's been happening on the picket line. It gets complicated and involves a lot of different days and different picket locations and specific instances. But the basic conflict is that the companies say that the picketers are creating an unsafe environment. They're, yelling and harassing people, and they're risking safety by blocking the entrances and exits of these concrete facilities. The union representing these drivers, Teamsters Local 174, disputes that they've created any safety issues or been a part of any harassment or threats of violence. And so what the judge found was that at a basic level, he believed that blocking trucks trying to enter these concrete facilities was a safety risk because it could leave those trucks out in the road blocking traffic. So he said the picketers can no longer block trucks trying to get in, but they can continue to block trucks leaving these facilities. They typically do this for about 2 minutes at a time. They block the truck for 2 minutes and then they let it go, and then they do it for the next truck. And this has the effect of slowing the work that the companies are doing, furthering the goals of the strike.
Okay. And we are talking about 300 or so drivers here. It doesn't seem like a huge amount of drivers, but it is really setting back projects all over the city. Everything from curb cuts to the West Seattle Bridge, right?
That's right. Concrete is basically an upstream supply that's needed for a lot of construction. So, it's not the people hammering the nails who are on strike here, but it's a critical supply that's needed for a lot of different work. So when you slow the flow of concrete, that can slow the process of, framing up a building, of laying a foundation, of all sorts of other work. And contractors can try to work around that for a while, but eventually they do need concrete. And so the result of that has been a slowdown in private projects like the convention center expansion and public projects like Sound Transit lines and the West Seattle Bridge, as you mentioned.
And of course, that West Seattle Bridge is a very visible example that Bruce Harrell pointed out to definitely put some heat on people about their future if this strike doesn't get settled.
That's right. And the contractor on that project says that they're still aiming for a June 30th completion of those repairs, but it will be more difficult if the strike stretches on. And I would also just add that, it's difficult for the governments and the contractors who want to finish the projects. And it's also the workers, they want to get back to work too. They are on strike and not able to work. And other trades who are not these mixer drivers, but who can't do their work until the concrete arrives have also been laid off on certain projects. And so everyone is really feeling the pressure to try to reach a resolution here.
Okay, these delays in construction have a pretty big impact. There's a ripple effect when one part of a project gets stalled. We heard from the general manager for Turner Construction Company, Bill Ketchum, about how it's affecting his work.
We're doing a low-income residential project for Bellwether Housing and Plymouth Housing, and it's the first high-rise, low-income project in Seattle in the past 50 years. We were planning to open that by the end of this year, and now we're projecting that could draw into next year. So that means, that individuals who are looking to take off the streets, apartments for seniors experiencing homelessness and low-wage workers won't have those homes to go to when we wanted them to.
Heidi, what are you hearing about delays on construction projects like we just heard about? Is anything being done to move this ahead?
Well, it's difficult to say exactly how long the delays will be for any given project. Projects are at different stages. Some work can be done on some of these projects while others are more at a halt. And the companies are using some replacement drivers and in some cases are pouring concrete. So it's definitely a significant slowdown. It's not a complete halt. And the one factor that will be pretty universal across all of these projects is that once the strike does end, there will be a high demand for concrete as everyone tries to get caught back up. And that means that it'll take a little while for everything to get back on schedule.
All right, it's easy to see how this is impacting big construction companies, but how is this strike and the slowdown in construction going to affect you and me, other than probably sitting in extra traffic and congestion over the summer at the West Seattle Bridge?
Well, if the delays go on long enough, you could see some publicly funded projects have cost increases. There's a lot of factors at play there. Construction projects have certain flexibility built into the schedule for delays and things that might come up. But in general, the longer things take, the more expensive they get. And so we don't know the full impact of that yet, but we could see some public projects increase in costs if the delays go on for a long enough period of time.
Yeah, if there's one thing for sure, once the strike ends, everybody wants to get on track as quickly as possible for sure, because time is always money. Heidi Groover, really appreciate your reporting on this. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. Jenny Cecil Moore produced today's show. Matt Jorgensen does our theme music. Thanks to our friends at KUOW's Sound Side for the voices in today's show. I'm Patricia Murphy.